at section 11, 1, and you just made reference to subsection 2, where almost maybe a caveat is placed on that that freedom. Many of us believe, and I've heard so many expressions coming from a wide segment of the populace. We have somebody online. Good evening. You're live with us tonight. Good evening. Hello. Good evening. Hello. You're live. Good evening. Well, the person we missed a call shall come back. Yes, and we were saying that a number of people and people who belong to the legal fraternity were actually saying had their own perception as to whether one's freedom of association or one right to assembly was almost carte blanche. And you made reference to subsection 2 of section 11. And is that correct? Is that correct? Do you have, and I know you have referenced that and referenced the instances where the parliament can pass a law to curtail that movement. One of the pieces of legislation that may be of importance tonight for us to give some further guidance to the public is the Public Order Act. How do you look at that act vis-a-vis that section that you have just read, the Constitution, under Section 11, subsection 2?
Okay, as I said, Section 11 speaks to protection of freedom of assembly and association. And I says that right, that constitutional right, can be taken away if the law is reasonably required, for example, in the interest of defense, public safety, public order, public morality, or public health. So you have a Public Order Act in Dominica. Now the Public Order Act was passed in 1954. It remained on the statute books in the 1961 revised laws. And is still on the statute books. So it's not a new law. Now, when you look at the law, it speaks to, you have the interpretation section, we'll not worry that. But we go to section 3, it says, it shall be unlawful for any public procession to take place unless a permit has been issued for that public procession. It's unlawful. You have to have a permit.
Okay, just take a peek on there, while please, Honorable. Let us, for the interest of public education, could you just give a definition as to what a procession is, and so one can get a sense as
what
to
a procession is?
Yes,
yes. That's what that's going to do.
Okay, fine. So, yeah.
A public procession means any march, demonstration, or procession in a public place, except a march, demonstration, or procession ordered by or approved by the President, ordered by or sanctioned by the Commissioner of Police. Ordered or approved in writing by the Scouts or Guides Commissioners, or it is part of a religious procession, that's part of a wedding or funeral, but there must be no political demonstration or celebration involved. That the minister in writing, the Minister for Education, says it's okay for children of a particular school or any organization approved by the Prime Minister, or on an occasion approved in writing by the Prime Minister. That's what the law says. So essentially, it is saying that a procession, a public procession, you must get a permit to have it, except those I just mentioned. The president, the commissioner says that the police and the firemen and the prison officers will go in procession in town. There's no need. But anyone else, you must have a permit to have a procession.
Okay. So in this regard, what you just referenced, let us try to explain to the public, if in the event that you want to have a public procession, namely a march or, a demonstration, etc., what is the procedure to be followed under Section 4 of the Public Order Act?
Okay, the law is there. It says any person who wants to have a public procession must, at least 3 days before the intended date, apply for permit to the commissioner. Anybody at all. You must apply for permit.
Okay.
And you must say where it will start, where it will end, how long it will be, and of course the day that is going to happen.
No, that is absolutely important. And to have all those mitigating factors there. What do you believe was the intention of the drafters, or the intention of that measure, to insist that certain procedures must be followed? For matter of fact, if other members of the public may not be interested in that match, but has a right to, so you need to say to the police, I'm starting at that time, I'm using that route, etc., so that other people will know beforehand. Of course, you're having a demonstration in that particular locality. If you're not interested in it, you may want to pass somewhere else and give the police the opportunity to adequately police that activity. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, you see, I would say that is necessary, because we have to always maintain and remember it's a democratic society governed by the rule of law. So you cannot have a situation where I can get up tomorrow morning and get 50 people to join me and in Cox Street and stand in Cox Street and decide that I'm having a meeting for whatever reason. Because if I do that, traffic cannot move, children cannot go to school, people cannot go to work, somebody else might be doing the same thing somewhere else. So you have to have order in society. And to have order, you have a right to assembly, you have a right to march, but you have to tell the authorities, you have to tell the police. So the police can say, you cannot pass on that street, because you pass on that street, you'll disrupt business in the town. And you cannot do it at that time, because that is the time when at 1 o'clock, children are leaving convent, children are leaving St. Martin's School, children are leaving DGS. So you cannot have it at that time. So you have to apply and get for a permit and get a permit and say the time you want to have it. And the police, in their wisdom, will tell you, we do not agree you can have it on that day. We do not agree you can have it on that time. We do not agree you can have it along that route. And this is the route between two of us in the public interest. That is when you can have it. That's where you can have it. And that's the time you can have it.
Very interesting. There was something wrong with our phones a while ago, so we're now up and running. So if you want to call, the number is 448-3284 or 1-800-327. And we're speaking to the former Attorney General, Anthony Laron, and an expert in the area of legal drafting. Mr. Laron, now we looked at Section 4. And in the event that somebody applies to the Chief of Police for permission to have a procession, namely a march or a demonstration, and the Chief of Police refuses that application, what is the mandate that is placed upon the Commissioner of Police having refused under Section 5.1?
Okay. When the Commissioner of Police has to make a decision, and what I mean by that is it has to be a scientific decision. And I use that term in terms of he has to look at the circumstances, what time, the route. He has to exercise his brain, his mind to the issue to decide. It's not just a question, I'm not given the permit. It's not like I have a dance or I have a party at my home and say, you're not welcome, you'll have to leave. No. The Commissioner of Police has a function and a role to play, and he has to look at the permit, look at the reason, look at what the citizen wants to do. And based on the circumstances, taking all things that are material to the issue and all things that are relevant to the issue, not things that are irrelevant, relevant, then he determines to grant or not to grant. It's not a matter of I'm granting or not granting because I don't like the person or because I don't like what he talks or whatever. He has a right, freedom of expression. But you see that you have to decide whether the time he wants to have it, the place he wants to have it, the length of time, is it okay? What is the impact on the rest of society? And if he refuses to give it to you, you have a right of recourse. You can go for judicial review. You can go to the court and say, this is a public officer, and he has a duty to look at the facts with an open mind and give me or not give me. He has that right. But I'm saying, but the citizens also have a right to say, look, and to review your decision. But he has the duty to determine, based on all these facts, I'll not give you a permit. He's free to do that too, once the circumstances so require.
Yes, but I wanted to go a little deeper. He can grant the permission under Section 5, under Section 4, or on 5. But if he refuses, there is something in law that he has to do. And he is obligated, he shall. If you were to read further down in this section, what?
Yeah, he shall refer the application to the minister.
Right, okay.
With his recommendation.
Yes, so he cannot simply say, I'm refusing. He's obligated by law if he refuses to refer it to the minister.
Yeah, that's correct. He said he refers it to the minister.
Yeah. And maybe you want to take us through what happens from there. Having referred it to the minister, what happens from there?
Well, it says clearly that in cases where any application is granted in accordance with the direction of the minister, the commissioner shall issue to the applicant the permit.
Yeah. So the reason why I'm asking that, because there are certain checks and balances in the system. That if the commissioner refuses, he cannot simply say, I'm refusing, and leave it at that.
He cannot.
He has to give reasons and shall.
He has to look at it. He cannot just decide I'm not giving it. He has to look at the issues. He has to look at the request. He has to look at it.
And then if he refuses, he is mandated by law to refer it to the minister. We are talking to Anthony Laron, former Attorney General of Dominica, and someone with immense expertise and experience who has worked throughout the region. And we're here until 9:30, having a very important discussion on two very important pieces of our Constitution. One that speaks to the whole issue of freedom of expression and freedom of association. And we'll be back in a while, and let us just
The Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs presents Legal Affairs and You. Know your rights, know the law, know your ministry, know your procedures. Tune in to DBS Radio and view on the DBS Facebook page and on the YouTube channel on the second and fourth Thursday of every month. The introductory program will be aired on Thursday, April 18. The guest is Anthony Laronde, and he will discuss freedom of expression. Tune in this Thursday at 8 p.m. for the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs and You. Know your rights, know the law, know your ministry, know your procedures. A 90 minutes program on National Broadcaster, DBS Radio. The Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs presents Legal Affairs and You. Know your rights, know the law, know your ministry, know your procedures. Tune in to DBS Radio and view on the DBS Facebook page and on the YouTube channel on the second and fourth Thursday of every month. The introductory program will be aired on Thursday, April 18. The guest is Anthony Laronde, and he will discuss freedom of expression. Tune in this Thursday at 8 p.m. for the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs and You. Know your rights. Know the law. Know your ministry. Know your procedures. A 90 minutes program on National Broadcaster, DBS Radio.
We're back, and yes, Mr. Laron, and as it's now 5 minutes after 9 o'clock, we shall end in the next 25 minutes, but I think we need to actually just go through the other section under the Public Order Act, as we have been speaking, of course, looking at the nexus between the Constitution and the Public Order Act, and before we go to section 6 and 7, I would like us, maybe with your permission, to go back to section 3 for the edification of those who are listening, or people who may partake in a procession without, or aid and abet a procession which is seemingly illegal. But let us just dwell on that a bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, as I said earlier, the law is, we lucidly declare under Section 3 that it is unlawful for anyone to have a public procession unless you have a permit. I mean, the law is clear, you must have a permit to have a public procession. And then if you do not have a permit, you have broken the law. And there's a penalty clause in the legislation which says you can be fined $10,000 or imprisoned for 6 months. So this is why you need to get a permit. And as I said earlier, the commissioner can give you a permit or he can refuse. He can send it up to the minister, and the minister can give you a permit, or he can also refuse. And the same thing applies to both the minister and the commissioner. If they refuse to give you a permit, you can go for judicial review. You can join both of them and apply to the court and says, look, these are public officers and they have ruled against me, and I'd like you to tell me whether they did what is correct, which is, did they follow the proper procedures? Did they take into consideration the relevant factors? And if they did, the court will say they did not do anything wrong. If they didn't, the court will say, aha, there's a flaw in that decision because you did not take into consideration relevant things. Actually, you took into consideration relevant things.
Okay, thank you very much. Let us just quickly look at section, no, not quickly, but take your time to look at section 7, and to expound on that a bit in the event that people may decide to have a public meeting that may have consequences insofar as the public interest is concerned. What facility does section 7 provides to whoever the minister is to act in defense of public interest or public order?
Yes, it's a very interesting section. When I read it earlier today, for example, subsection 1 says the minister may by order prohibit during such periods as may be specified in the order the holding of any public meeting, if at any time it appears to the minister that the action is necessary. So essentially saying the minister can decide, well, I am going to prohibit meetings for the next month, any public meetings. But it is if it appears to the minister that the action is necessary. And what that really means is that the minister does not just decide, look, there'll be no public meetings in May. There must be a reason. The minister must make that decision based on circumstances. The circumstances that exist in Dominica now, it is not in the public interest that there should be public meetings for the next 3 weeks, for the next 2 weeks. I'll give you an example. if you have social problems, big problems, lawlessness, people are creating problems in the town, problems in the country, people are afraid to leave their homes, people are afraid to travel. The minister might, and I think the minister would be on strong grounds to decide, I don't think we should have public meetings. Because if we have public meetings, it will create more problems in the country. We will not have public meetings for the next 3 weeks until the police can bring things to a certain normalcy, calm, and then we can allow the process to continue. You see, and the bottom line is, when you take away these rights, it has to be in the public interest.
Mm-hmm.
And once it's in the public interest, you can take away, and you have a duty to take away those rights. Because otherwise, society will break down. Mm-hmm. It will be a lawless society. So when you see it's on the verge, you have the right to say, well, these public meetings, people have freedom of expression, people have freedom of assembly, but these public meetings are causing more problems in the country because people are using them as a cover to have lawlessness in the country, to burn places, to break into property, to steal, to be unruly. No, you have to have an organized society where people believe and operate by the rule of law, where you have authority, where people have to respect people, respect properties, and so on. And a government has a responsibility that once that is not happening, to pull back rights, to ensure that the society remains calm and safe. That's the duty of government. You cannot reverse from that. You cannot not do that. You have that right, and people have to understand that. And God-fearing citizens, good citizens, citizens who have clean hearts and minds, must understand it's not a political thing. It's a question of, if you are a true Christian and you really believe in your country, you have to say, yes, government has in fact done the right thing in the public interest.
No, if we were to give that maybe a next speed, and there's some you may have heard before, and you continue to hear it on a daily basis, and that people say that they have a right to demonstrate, a right to protest, and once it is peaceful, there's no need to apply for permission. What is your thought on that?
Yes, you have a right to demonstrate, but again, you cannot exercise that right to the detriment of the rest of society. Mm-hmm. So you cannot decide that you are going to demonstrate on 4 corners at 10 o'clock on Monday.
Okay, we have a caller. Let's just see whether we can get that right tonight again. Good evening, you're live on DBS Radio.
Good evening to DBS Radio. Good evening to the Honorable Minister. Good evening to your host, your guest, or your host. Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask a question a little bit. You know, I do a sense and to learn things. I can remember sometime when an incident in this country, right? Either something happened in the country and a whole heap of thing happened. And one of the person come on the national radio station and says, no chief of police, no prime minister can stop it. Do that within the law or that against the law. I am listening. Up and running, fireman running the tanks. I'm listening.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Yes. Mr.
Yeah,
Laurent.
Repeat what he said.
Yes.
You want to repeat his question?
You heard him?
Yeah, but he is muffled.
Okay. He said that there was a time, there was certain things happening in the country, and I guess there was some meeting, and somebody said that no police, nobody can stop him, and what's to that effect? Whether that person was right in saying so.
The person said nobody can stop him?
The police can't stop him. And of course, I guess was referring to February 7th, but this matter is before the court. So
Okay.
February 7th, when a particular time was given to end, and the police called.
There is something for the court. I don't want to
so-
really comment on it, but essentially what I'm saying is, if in the view of the police, at any time that any citizen is breaking the law, the police have a right to arrest and charge the person. Whoever it is, whatever the circumstances, that's a police matter. The police says that, I believe that you break the law, this is the law you're breaking, they arrest you, bring you to the police station, and then they give you station bail, or you have to go to the courts and get bail.
Yes. I want us to go back to that because what we're doing here tonight and what we intend to do subsequently in other programs is to provide the listening public in a very objective manner the merits of our laws. And we continue to hear that people say that I don't have to apply for a permit. I do not need permission according to the Constitution once my demonstration or protest is peaceful. Given what we have spoken about and looking at the Constitution, looking at Section 11, subsection 2, and the facility that's been provided to enact laws in the interest of public order and public safety, etc., that we were referencing the Public Order Act, which of course is as a result of this provision that this law was enacted. What is your view on that? What can you say to the people who have that view?
So I'm saying that they do not have to apply for.
Yeah.
Okay, the law is very clear that if you want to have a procession, you must have a permit. It's very clear. Now, you have a right to express your feelings in many ways. One of them might be to demonstrate. You see, but you do not have a right to impinge on my rights or my friend's rights in doing that. So what it means is that you cannot just decide that you will go on the sidewalk and exercise your right to express your dissatisfaction with X. But by so doing, I cannot use the sidewalk because I have a right to walk on the sidewalks in my city. I have a right to drive my vehicle. So you cannot just come and decide you have a demonstration in Four Corners, as I said a while ago, and I'm trying to get out of town and I cannot pass Digicel because you're exercising your right to demonstrate or to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. And that is why the law says you have to get a permit to do these things. Because otherwise you are taking away other people's rights. You know, so it's very clear. You must get a permit if you want to do this kind of things, because otherwise you will be affecting other people. None of us have more rights than others. It's not because you have a right or you think you're talking for a million people that you have a right more than me. I'm not talking for nobody. I'm not talking for myself. But then to be able to pass on the sidewalk and to be able to drive my car freely. And I have that right. And you cannot curtail it because you have a grievance. So you want to have your placards and talk about whether it is whatever it is. It might not even be political. But you don't have that right.
Okay. And then as we come to almost to an end of this program, and I want to commend you, Mr. Laron, for your eloquence tonight and the sense of passion in which you have presented thus far. And this is consistent with your knowledge and your expertise. And of course, the public, I believe, is benefiting immensely from your vast experience and knowledge. But so we have actually spoken about the Public Order Act, and in your view, is that act necessary?
It's extremely necessary. You see, In the Constitution, right? Section 41 of the Constitution says
Thank you very much.
Parliament has the power, the duty, the function to make laws for the peace, order, and good governance of Dominica. That's fundamental, that's crucial, that Parliament has to make laws for the peace, order, and good governance. There are times Parliament will make laws that appear to be harsh, but in the circumstances necessary. Because you live in a society governed by the rule of law. You must have laws, you must have courts, you must have independent courts, and the courts will decide when the laws are unconstitutional, when they're taking away your rights and it's not correct, or when they're constitutional, when you have breached the law, when you have not breached the law. But you must have, to have an ordered society, you must have laws, and people must abide by the laws. And the recourse they have is that if the law they think is unconstitutional, if they think the law is bad law, you go to the courts and the courts will rule on the law. But government has a right to pass laws. And as I just said, in terms of both provisions you looked at, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, sometimes these freedoms have to be curtailed in the public interest. If it is reasonably justifiable in a democratic society, government has a duty to curtail those laws, those rights.
I'm very happy that you made reference to Section 41. I was just about to ask the question, and you just actually made reference to Section 41. And as we end this program tonight, and your experience in actually looking at the Constitution, and you may have studied all the constitutions in other countries. The text within the context of our Constitution, the language, do you find it to be ambiguous at all?
Do I find it to be?
Ambiguous. Do you find it?
No, you see, and I'll tell you, because the language, the constitutional language is precise.
Precisely, right.
You see, and you don't just write a constitution. You see, when you look at all the CARICOM constitutions, except Haiti and Suriname, the language, Jamaica, Barbados, is the same because it's been interpreted. So we know what it means. So this is why you don't just amend your constitution every day and every week. Because it's entrenched, enshrined, that's where all your rights are. And as I said earlier, every law has to be consistent with your constitution. Because any law that is not consistent with your constitution is null and void. So for example, as a draftsperson, any law I draft, I have to make sure it is in sync with the Constitution and every other law that's on the statute books.
Yeah. So I'm saying that to say, so there's no confusion, and in interpreting that text within the Constitution itself, the language, and as we speak specifically to the Public Order Act, and within the circumstances of it being justified.
Once it's justifiable in a democratic society and it is in the public interest and the reason it's reasonable in the circumstances, you apply the law.
Yes.
It's good law.
Okay. So it's now 25 minutes past 9 o'clock. We have 5 more minutes to go. It has been to me a learning experience listening to you tonight. And I'm almost certain that people who have been listening will come to the same conclusion, that you were very clear and very, very specific, and with a tremendous knowledge of the Constitution, being a draft person yourself and being a former Attorney General, I want to commend you because I can recall that you worked with CARICOM. We would have met quite a few times during Cricket World Cup 2007 when the various pieces of legislation will be enacted, crafted to give effect to Cricket World Cup. And so you have been around, a Caribbean man, and holding strong. And I'm indeed happy that you're back and giving your service to your country. Now, as we end, as we looked at 2 areas of importance within the Constitution, what is your advice to the Dominican public? Because, I mean, you live in Dominica, and you have been listening from various segments of the society, the rights that they have, and it is carte blanche that you have a right to express yourself. You have a right to have a procession or your demonstration without having the decency to apply and to comply with the law. What would you advise those people? Well, us. I want to say that.
Well, my advice is we have to be conscious that no man is an island. We are not alone. We are a country where all of us have the rights enshrined in the Constitution. But we have to be aware that we cannot exercise and enjoy those rights to the detriment of other persons. And that's the fundamental thing. I have a right to assembly, but I cannot exercise that right by making other people, inconveniencing other people. They cannot move, they cannot do their business, they cannot go where they want to go, they cannot get there on time because I'm blocking the road, because I have a right to demonstrate. You know, everything we do, we have to understand that right, and government has a fundamental duty to curtail those rights if I am enjoying the right to the detriment of the rest of the society.
Before you go, it's a controversial, not really a controversial question.
Yeah, I know.
But I think I know the answer. But I want to ask you as a professional, and I am not sure what your center of gravity is in terms of politics, but I'm speaking to you as someone who is a professional. We have been, and this the intention is not to try to cause any kind of problems there tonight, but and sometimes the reality is hits people very hard, especially those who are very stubborn or obstinate. Now, we have been seeing, hearing about the Wednesday walkers every Wednesday, and is that within the context of what you know, what is provided for by way of a provision to allow government to pass laws to protect public order, etc.? Would you say that is a legal work or process? What is it? Would you say it's legal? Because there's no application for permission.
Is it legal?
Yeah. To decide that you're going to walk on the street with no permission, a mass. And,
My answer to that would be, if what you're doing is a match,
right,
clearly you fall under the ambit of the law.
Okay.
Clearly, you fall under the ambit of the law. And if you remember, I said earlier, if in exercising that right, you'd be impinging on other people's rights, clearly you'd fall under the ambit of the law.
Yeah.
You see, so maybe 6 people, not blocking traffic, not blocking the sidewalk, you might not be a match. But then as the numbers grow, and as the inconvenience becomes worse, you get to the point where it would be a match. And then the police could say, but I think you needed permission. And
then if the police were to set up barriers, and then you try to take down the barriers, what would that constitute?
No, well, clearly that if you interfere with police barriers, that's a big offense.
Okay.
There's obstruction of police in the performance of their duties. You cannot do that. If a police put up a no parking sign, I mean, you cannot remove it.
Yes.
You cannot. So the same thing, the police, for security reasons, put up the barriers and you can push it down. You're in serious problems.
Okay. Well, you should be in serious problem.
No, I mean, you are. The police
Yes.
might decide not to do anything about it, but you are in serious problems.
Yes. No, I referenced that.
You see, because otherwise the country, it becomes lawless. You see, you might think it's a joke and so on, but if we do whatever we want to do outside the parameters of the law, the country becomes lawless.
Yes. Now it's just 29 minutes after 9 o'clock. Let me just take this opportunity, sir, to thank you very much for your presence here tonight and your actually instructions. I say instructions and your lecture. I think that should go down as a very impressive and instructive lecture here tonight on the fundamentals of our responsibilities, our rights, and things that we cannot do, and things that we must do if we decide to express or exercise those rights. We will continue to have our programs and to continue to edify the public on various issues of significance relating to the job of the ministry. And I'm happy that we're able to start with you tonight and to look at these two fundamental issues. May the good God continue to bless you. And let me say thank you to DBS Radio. I almost came here tonight as if it was Monday night on Calypso Classic, but tonight is Thursday night on the launch of our new program.
Well, thank you very much.
And you find your closing remarks, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here. And I'm at home. I've been a lawyer since 1985, and I have lectured and taught from primary school to university. So I'm quite at home doing what I just did.
Okay.
As I said, certain things were my personal opinions, but whenever I did not say it was personal opinion, in my humble opinion, that's the law. I hope I contributed to the development of my country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to our wonderful listeners. And I'll see you again on our next program on the next Thursday night. Good evening to you, sir, and good evening to all
no
our
problem.
wonderful
Good evening.
listeners. Good evening.
Thank you. Bye.
The Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs presents Legal Affairs and You. Know your rights, know the law, know your ministry, know your procedures. Tune in to DBS Radio and view on the DBS Facebook page and on the YouTube channel on the 2nd and 4th Thursday of every month. The introductory program will be aired on Thursday, April 18. The guest is Anthony Laronde, and he will discuss freedom of expression. Tune in this Thursday at 8 p.m. for the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs and You. Know your rights, know the law, know your ministry, know your procedures. A 90 minutes program on National Broadcaster, DBS Radio.